folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got the dogs a howling and David Null. Thank you for being here, Mr. Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. And as always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we continue to pray that each and every day that you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom of the universe. And Robert and I are going to try to have another good show for you. We hope it will be. Tonight we're going to be talking about cannibalisms. Liver was a little bit of fava beans, and our story for tonight is what, Robert?
Oh, it is the sparrow search for rain. The sparrows search for rain.
And so that'll be in just a little bit. So hang on, and back to you, Robert.
Oh, absolutely. We got a full house tonight. We're getting people coming in. We got Chloe in the house, Witchy Moon, Susie Q, and Crystal Shaman. Thank you all for being here tonight so far. As everybody pours in, we'll be right on top of everything. So, good to know, right? Anyway.
Right.
Let's see. Chloe's here. And Nina the Mystic. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. It's a good night. Good night. We're going to be talking about that old guy that everybody's probably here that's probably watched the movie. And Jeremiah Johnson. You remember watching that movie back in the day with Robert Redford? And I got the pictures here somewhere, and we're going to present them because, hey, everybody wants to know that. Let me just get started with all of this, so we can get our show on the road because, hey, we got to have pictures. You remember this guy, Robert Redford? He played the part of Jeremiah Johnson. And yeah, Crystal Shaman, she says, I remember that movie. It was a good movie. If you get a chance, go back and watch it. I remember watching it, and I kept thinking, oh, boy, the life of a mountain man was so hard. Holy cow. And the fighting the Indians and trapping and scary every day. But, hey, these people made it, and they lived a long time, too, so it was an interesting way of life for them, and the whole 9 yards. Anyway, they were tough people, but this guy here, they called him the Crow Killer, the Liver Eater. He was so we're going to talk a little bit about the Crow people first off, and which is kind of interesting because he was after the Crow people all the time because they killed his wife and his unborn child. His wife was a Flathead Indian, of course. He had traded for her from the chief Bear Claw of the Flatheads. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the Crow tribe, the Crow Indian tribe, the keepers of the plains and the sky. That's what they were known. It was the Crow Nation, or the Ahaskaluki. I hope I pronounced that right, as they called themselves. They were one of the most influential and widely respected tribes of the Northern Plains. That Araspaluki means the children of the large-beaked bird. The large-beaked bird, which, I suppose at the time it would be the crow, so I guess that's the early in the French and the American traders misinterpreted and simply called them the Crow, and that name stuck, of course. And leave it up to those Americans. I can't understand what are you saying? I can hear it now. What? I can't pronounce that. Oh, it means big Oh, crow. Yeah, I'll just call you that. See, and that's how the word probably stuck. But the crow themselves, which is a large beaked bird, wasn't really a crow at all. It's likely a mythical or a spiritual being bird, more like the raven, like in the stories that you tell, David, right?
Yeah.
Um, and of course, it's a symbol of guidance and transformation. In their traditions, the birds often carried messages from the spirit world. So they reflected a deep spiritual connection to nature. Uh, and it was not just a mundane animal. They respected them, and it could have been a crow or a raven, but crows are just the way it is. Historically, the crow controlled a vast stretch of land across what is now Montana and northern Wyoming and parts of the Dakotas. Hey, that's where I live. Their territory it hugged right around the Yellowstone River, and stretched through the Bighorn Mountains, the Powder River Basin, and even as far south as the Wind River Range. And they were kind of semi-nomadic people, and their lives were centered around the horse, living in teepees made from buffalo hides with poles that were easy to set up and break down during seasonal migrations. Like many of the plains tribes, the Crows followed the great buffalo herds, which provided them with food, clothing, tools, and lots of shelter. Their society was highly organized and was built in like a clan system. The warrior societies and spiritual traditions, the Crow were known for their elaborate war bonnets. Maybe that's where they got the big headdresses. Their expert horse breeding and their statues were of renowned scouts, and the reputation that would later lead many to work with the U.S. military as trackers during the Indian Wars. And we hear that all the time. Like when they were hunting the Apaches, they always had Crow scouts. And anyway, the Crow had a complicated relationship with their neighbors. They often clashed with the Sioux, the Cheyenne, and the Blackfeet, who were more numerous and frequently raided Crow territory. The Crow, in turn, allied themselves with the Shoshone, the Mandans, and eventually even the U.S. government, seeing white settlers as a lesser threat than their traditional enemies. This alliance with the U.S. would shape their history profoundly, giving them short-term survival advantages, also entangling them in a larger war and different treaties. Some of the most famous scouts of the U.S. Army were Crow men, including those who rode with Custer before the Battle of Little Bighorn. We can't all forget that battle. That's down in history. Well, but today, the Crow Indian Reservation in southeastern Montana is one of the largest in the country. Did you know that? The tribe continues to celebrate their heritage through language preservation, spiritual practices, and storytelling traditions, which we're going to practice a storytelling tradition tonight. Of those, they host the annual Crow Fair, a major cultural gathering often called the teepee capital of the world. I did not know that. Interesting. Has anybody been there? Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Despite facing those losses of land and their cultural erosion through the centuries, the Crow people remain a resilient and proud nation, keeping alive the spirit of the plains, their stories of their ancestors, and the fierce independence that made both allies and enemies to the empires. So that's a little bit we know about the Crow Indians. Isn't that something? As you can see by the pictures, they had a distinctive look about them compared to some of the other tribes and stuff like that too. Oh, I think that's my last picture of them. Hawkeye, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and I have seen I've seen some folk that at powwows that I want to say that emulated the crow. You know, they wore
Mm-hmm.
they wore their, you know, their sacred garb and stuff, and so it's like in a way and it's all about the facial expression. Um, there are some folks that is like, you know, if somebody from the Crow Nation is walking up and might look like they got a scowl on their face, and you know, that guy, you know, would you say he looked very very friendly, or maybe a little, well, like, I'm going to stay over here kind of thing. So, but um, when you got to know them, they were very warm, a very warm people, but you know, at times they look very intimidating, and I don't mean anything mean or bad by that, you know. Um, just sometimes some people just like look like they're gonna whoop you or something, and they ain't.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, now we know the layout of where the crow were,
My
and
beard's longer than his.
you know, and again, it's amazing that we can look back in pictures and see the actual real man of the day. You know, when we talk about this stuff, it's like he's someone out there that we just don't know. And was he real or not? But we have, you know, he lived long enough. He lived a really long time, actually, to get his picture taken. To, you know, so we have an historical record of him. This is what he actually looked like. He was a big man, believe it or not. Um, at least for back in those days. So let's talk about Liver Eating Johnson. They called him the Avenger of the Rockies. He was born in 1824. Whew, that was a long time ago. Just about the time the beaver stuff was big in the mountains, and the beaver trading and the furs and stuff. And he went out west to become a mountain man. Yes, he did. He ended up being a mountain man, a scout, a lawman. Um, you know, he became one of the biggest frontier legends. Of course, you know, we know him as Jeremiah Johnson in the movies. He was born John Jeremiah Garrison Johnson. Wow, couple few names there. he,
But you know, I'm sorry to interrupt you here for a second. For me, I watched a lot of Rawhide. I watched a lot of the old Western, you know, TV shows, and I think I would have remembered the liver eating Johnson. So what I'm saying is, he may have been in a show, in one of those TV things, but you know, I don't remember ever hearing his name until now. So, but anyway, to some people he might be famous, but I watched a bunch of westerns, you know, and even in my old age, going online and watching old westerns, I've not heard of his name. So I want to point out that, you know, this is all new stuff to me, and there might be people out there that are like, "What's up, elderberry?" But you know, their brain is going, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah, well,
it's new to them. So
the story Jeremiah Johnson, the movie, was based on his life, but here's the but part. A lot of those westerns that you're talking about were snippets of his life put into the movies, because, you know, who's going to watch a movie? You know, these were real life things he did, and they just, you know, copied a lot of that stuff. The look, They copied his mannerisms. They copied the things he did, the tall tales, etc., etc., etc. They just renamed it and put it on a different character. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah,
this guy,
maybe.
he did it all. So, anyway, we're going to get on with this. Johnson was a giant of a man. He stood over 6 feet tall. He was known for his sheer toughness. He made his living as a trapper, a hunter, and an Indian scout, moving through some of the most dangerous territory in the 1800s of Montana, Wyoming, and Yellowstone region. Well, one of the most famous tales Johnson is known for is his 20-year war. Now, 20 years war with the Crow tribe. And according to folklore, the Crow killed his Flathead wife in the mid-1800s. Yeah, I remember this part of the story. And the part was that he was 20 years old. He's out trapping with another guy. And he says, I'm going to go over to the Flatheads and I'm going to trade some things and I'm going to get me a wife. And he got himself a wife. And his wife wasn't just an ordinary wife. She was one of the Flatheads. But as we know, the Flatheads would take and put a rock and strap it to their child's head and let it grow like that, and their heads became flat. But his wife, they didn't do that to. And she didn't have the flathead like the other women did, or most of the tribe did. She was known as the Swan, and she was the daughter of Chief Bear Claw. It's important knowledge to know. Anyway, so he married this woman off, and he set up a cabin, and he probably would have been a mundane, just a plain ordinary guy trapping and hunting like anybody else. But while he was out trapping one day, the Crow came in, raided his house, and killed his wife, and he set out on a brutal act of revenge. Johnson is said to have hunted down Crow warriors one by one and killing over 300 of them, and cutting out and eating their livers as a warning to others. And that's where the idea of him cutting out the livers, the idea was to scare his enemy and to belittle them. It was also known that when of course they were all after him, and when he encountered the Crow, and they knew it was him, and once he killed one warrior, they got so scared they all would run away, because he was believe it or not, he was like a monster. Oh my God, it's liver eating Johnson. He's going to kill me and eat my liver. I'm getting the heck out of here.
And one of the reasons is because of, I guess I'm going to use the word superstition, but
yes, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, but I mean,
superstition.
The superstition about someone who would eat liver from a human being, and that to the warriors they meant like, holy mackerel, he is the epitome of a warrior, because not only did he kill him, he took out his liver and then ate it, held it up and, took a bite and you've seen that in the movies.
Yes.
So that when they saw him and when he killed one of their ranks, they were like, he wasn't just a man then to them. He had some kind of supernatural power, if you will, extra power.
Oh yeah,
he had eaten the liver. So, but anyway, I'm sorry.
Oh, it was a psychological attack on him.
Yep.
Because he used that because remember, the natives had beliefs about your soul and organ removal. Remember how they would cut people open and pull out their organs, and while they were still alive, or they would do all that kind of crazy stuff. But he really took it to another level. Like I said, he would follow these natives. He would follow them, trail them, stay a couple miles back, and then, spy on their villages or their encampments, especially the warriors. And he would scout them out. And then at night, or when one wandered away to go hunting or whatever it was, he would ambush them and he would get that guy. It was,
the guy's got to go take a wee wee in the middle of the night, and he's dead.
Yeah, and your liver's missing. And think about it. If you were in that encampment and you found your buddy laying over there and he's been cut and his liver's gone, oh my gosh, I would be shaking in my boots. It's the freaking ghost, he's out there somewhere and he's gonna get us all. We got to get the heck out of here.
And with the stories of the skinwalker, and that so in the dead of night there, he can sneak up on you, and so you could live in terror all the time, especially if one of your own was murdered and laying in the field out there. Them folks was shaking in their boots.
Yeah.
Is he going to come for me? Oh, I got a question.
Yes.
Did he know who killed his wife, or did he just go on a rampage?
Well, he went on a rampage. Well, first off, he went on a rampage. Second off, he did eventually, they scalped her. And eventually, as the story goes, he did come up in the end, he came up to a group of Crow warriors. Now, he'd been killing Crow warriors for quite a while. And one day he came on top of a hilltop, and in this valley, there was the Crow. There was about 50 men, and they were sorting horses. And they had about 1,000 horses out there, and they're sorting these horses. And he managed to go down, and one of them wandered away by chance, and he got him. He killed him, scalped him, and on this warrior's belt, his hoop they call it, or whatever it is, he had a scalp. Not just any scalp. It was his wife's scalp. And somehow he recognized it. Maybe
because she had red hair.
She was an Indian. She was a native. She was a flathead. But
she had red hair. That's what had her stood out, I think. At least that's the way I remember part of it. So, but anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, either way,
he recognized it.
He recognized that it was braided or something or other it was, but he took the scalp. He killed the warrior. He knew that well, of course, he knew the father, the chief, right? Bear Claw, and so he went to the Bear Claw's village. And he had a talk with him, sat down in the native circle, and smoked the peace pipe, did the whole thing. And he says, listen, I got something for you. And he gave him the scalp of his daughter. And Bear Claw didn't know what to think. They talked. He said, is this my daughter's killer? And did you kill all of them? And he says, no, there's 50 of them, and they're coming here to trade some horses tomorrow. And Bear Claw says, okay. And he says, there's actually only 49, he says, because I killed one already. And so Bear Claw said, you did your due diligence. I will take my revenge out on the others. So when the Crow warriors came up, the next day or so with those horses, the Flatheads kind of entrapped them, and they killed them all. And that was Bear Claw's revenge. Because back in those days, it was an eye for an eye. You kill somebody, I know I'm going to, hold revenge on you forever, kind of, I'm going to come after you later. And that's kind of how their Indian wars were. It was like, you raid my village, I'm going to go raid your village, and back and forth and back and forth. That was kind of the end of that part. Of the last big revenge anyway. But that he's known for a lot of stories and a lot of things that he did throughout the ages. Let's see. And of course, as his life went on, he we'll just get right into this here. Now, he wasn't just a crow killer, because eventually he made up with the Crow because they really honored him. They were like, this is a hell of a warrior. You know how the Indian
was excuse my French, but he was a badass.
Yes, he was a badass. But that the natives, the Indians, whichever tribe you're on, if you are a brave and honorable warrior, they honor that. That is a status thing, regardless if they killed your brother or not. You are honored because you're tough, you're brave, you're a warrior. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Bravery was a big deal. I mean, it didn't matter which side you were working on, man.
Yes.
If that guy over yonder had killed 10 of your best friends and finally you took him down, they would honor that man and go, he was one tough SOB, and
yeah.
they'd smoke the pipe and honor him after the battle, and the Vikings and folks like that did it too. So, but yes, that's a wonderful thing. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It is. It reminds me of that story I heard about the bugler. Do you ever hear the bugler story?
I'm not sure.
Back
in the Civil War?
No, this was cavalry. They were fighting the Indians. The troop was all getting killed. This young man, he was the bugler. He just really didn't even have a gun. He just plays the bugle, kind of thing. And when the Indians surrounded him, he fought like the Dickens against them with swinging his bugle, beating the Indians away, fighting and fighting and fighting. And he just didn't give up until they killed him. But when they scalped all the rest of the cavalry guys, they didn't scalp or mutilate his body. And that was a sign of honor, to not be scalped or mutilated or, have all your stuff taken from you because you fought with honor. I don't know if you knew that one or not.
I think you told it now that I remember it.
I might have told that one, but
because I'm like, oh yeah, that one.
Yeah,
I didn't remember it as the bugler. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember what the person did.
Yeah, and actually they couldn't find his bugle. After he passed away, they didn't find his bugle. Actually, they found his bugle here, like 20, 30 years ago, laying out there in the field under a rock or something. So they didn't even take his bugle. Yeah, it was all banged up and everything, but they didn't even take his bugle. So it just tells you what kind of honor they did to a brave warrior. So let's move on here. So Johnson was doing all that. But when the Civil War came, he joined up and fought for them. He was a U.S. Army scout for a while. He became that Union soldier in the Civil War. He were a soldier for the Union, and later in life he became a marshal and a lawman in towns across Montana and Colorado. Knowing his tracking ability and wilderness skills, he could survive alone in the hostile terrain for months at a time. This guy lived so long. He lived through the collapse of the fur trade, the rise of the railroads, the taming of the West. He always trying to find a new line of work. His myth of this man went on, and the stories grew bigger and bigger. Towards the end of his life, he became more peaceful figure, of course. He just couldn't do what he could do. And eventually, at the end of his life, they honored him, and they could see that he was going downhill. They shipped him off to a veterans hospital in California, and months later, he died in 1900. So, like I said, he lived a good he was like 85 years old or something. Of course, we all know the story of it was made into a story of Jeremiah Johnson then after that. But, friends of his were still alive, and they continued his story and told the tales and helped write a book. So, anyway, here's one of those stories of, wrong way. I go this way. As you can see, they even made a monument and put him, now they got a monument in Montana. This is in Montana somewhere. There's a monument for him.
Let's see. That's cool. Now that's Jeremiah Johnson?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to try to find out where this is and take a trip out there. Because this is just down in my neck of the woods, This is over in mine. I was researching him, and I'm like, he was over here in Miles City, which is just not too far away from me. I've been to Miles City. Ain't that cool? I was somewhere where, Jeremiah Johnson was. I was there. It's kind of interesting, So let's talk about one of Johnson's stories here. The time he walked 200 miles after being captured by a war party. And sometime in the late 1840s, or maybe in the 1850s, in frozen ridgelines of Montana, Johnson had been trapping beaver when a Crow war party finally got the drop on him. They'd been hunting him for years. Remember, Johnson had a long-standing feud with the Crow, and they called him the Man Devil for the way he hunted them down and cut out their livers. Of course, that's psychological thing going on. This time they caught him off guard, too close to their territory. He was ambushed, clubbed unconscious, and taken back to their camp near the Yellowstone River. They tied him up, stripped him of his weapons, and threw him into a lean-to that was intent of, for torturing him, because this was one of those guys that you just don't go and kill and then scalp and call it good enough. He killed a bunch of my friends. No, you have to torture him. Torture. Because they've been
and they were, and probably that as part of the torture, it's like, you killed my brother. And, so the warriors, or even the women that, you killed my husband or whatever, so that they could literally go take a slice out of him and try to, give him pain to try to relieve their pain from the loss of their loved one. So, there was a lot of that, and people are like, oh, the women were slicing up the guy. That's because they blamed the guy for killing her husband, So, but anyway, go ahead.
Right. Their little bit of vengeance, they got to get their share out of them. Anyway, so he knew what was going to happen to him. He wasn't going to wait around for it. He's going to do everything he could. So That night, in complete silence, Johnson gnawed through his leather straps, his bindings on his wrist. He managed to get loose without alerting anybody. And then in the darkness, he crept towards the sentry, which the guy waiting for him, somebody keeping guard, who stood outside the camp. And Johnson snuck up on him. And Johnson was a big guy. Remember, he was 6 foot tall. And as the story goes,
6 foot tall.
Yes, he was over 6 foot tall, and he weighed probably 200. They said 200 or 230 pounds. He was a big, strapping man back in the day. There's some other stories that go with it that the way he moved around too. Anyway, as the story goes, he kicked the guard so hard that it knocked him out. Kicked him with his foot. And he knocked him out. Then, with the guard's bowstring, he strangled him to death. He took his knife and scalped him right there. And while, so the guy's knocked out, strangled him with the bow. Can you imagine that? And then took his own knife and then scalped the guy. Now, as it goes, he didn't know what to do. He's in the cold. He's got really nothing. He's got no food, nothing except this knife. So he takes, and I don't know how true this is, but but this makes the legend. He took the warrior's leg and twisted it clean off. And with that, he threw the leg over his shoulder and ran off. But he had no coat, no boots. He was barefoot in the deep snow in enemy territory. And with 200 miles between him and the nearest trading post, which was Fort Raymond. Well, so he's carrying this leg, and eventually on his run, he ended up making some makeshift moccasins because, he's walking in the snow. He traveled for days trying to eat whatever he could, bark off of trees, berries that were still. He gnawed on this leg for food, and then a grizzly apparently tried to attack him, and he beat off the grizzly with the leg.
He had a leg up on him, didn't he?
Yes, he had a leg up. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, can you imagine the tall tales that came out of this? Well, anyway, it'd been quite a while, and eventually he stumbled back to Fort Raymond, bloody, half frozen, and still wearing those homemade moccasins.
And just nothing but a skeleton of the leg, right?
And he still had the leg with him, believe it or not. I guess that's where the legend part comes in. You still got the leg. You can't make this stuff up. Where'd you get the leg? I ripped it off the freaking warrior when I killed him and scalped him and took his knife. And I
was hungry.
I knew I needed some food and I didn't know what to do, so I took the leg with me. And oh my God, I eat livers. What the heck?
Isn't it obvious? He wasn't going to need that leg no more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in some ways, being there are so many stories of cannibalism, during the winter, sea voyages that got stuck on the ice, and you name it. And the Donner family and Donner's Pass, which I've been to, and but just the idea that these people were so desperate to stay alive that if one of them died, they turned them into a stew, and so I can't remember which of the women but she had some kind of supplies or something stored away because none of her family, through that whole time, none of her family ever ate a person. So there was that too. It's a very interesting story, but but from a practical standpoint, it was argued between them at the cabins at Donner's Pass, right? And the snow was just way over your head. It's unreal.
Oh
And
yeah.
so to try to get through some of that, I just can't imagine. But so they had conversation, uh, we don't want to kill one another, but and I can't remember. One of them was poorly, had a cold and couldn't breathe, and what if? So the next morning, the what if was there. The person had passed away. So do we cut him up or not? So I think they stored him in another cabin where it was cold because it
Probably.
was hard to keep all of the cabins there warm enough so they didn't freeze.
Yeah.
But the conversation about cannibalism was just, it was hard to say no.
Well,
What do we want to eat? We want to survive. Yep. Well,
the,
there's a leg of him.
yeah. Well,
So
the natives did the same thing, and that's how they got the Wendigo. The
yep.
Wendigo is if you eat another human, you will become a cannibal and you'll roam the woods. Remember, we did a show on the Wendigo, and and you'll hunger for the flesh of men, and you'll wander in the woods, and you'll grow horns and howl at the moon like a wolf with and more you eat, the more you'll get hungry, and it goes on and on and on. So they knew about it. I guess they made up them stories like that to deter people from probably eating each other. Like, hey, I don't want to go hunting. Hey, that guy over there looks pretty fat today. Let's just
He
do
sure
it.
would make a good pudding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ham hocks on him, man.
But as you say that about that, um, some of Johnson's life could have influenced some of those stories.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that when you were talking about the movies, his life stories were what a lot of those movies were made out of. This, and it just goes on. I mean, where do you get better stories than that? These guys had it down pat and they experienced it. Here we got another one. We're going to do one more because this guy was just, he, like I said, he was bigger than life. I mean, all you got to do is follow his life, and you will be thinking about how easy you have it. How these people lived. They got along with the natives, and how they didn't get along with the natives, all at the same time. This one's the one about the winter raid and the horse thieves. This was back in the winter of 1858 when the snow piles shoulder deep in the ravines of Montana, and it does, and the wind sang like a ghost through the pines. Liver-eating Johnson rode along the Yellowstone. The beaver were long gone for the season, the creeks frozen, and most trappers had taken shelter in trading posts or caves. See, there's the caves thing again. But not Johnson. He was tougher than the mountains and colder than the wind itself. That's how legends are made. The winter, he wasn't trapping, he was tracking. See, Johnson had a small cabin deep in the Araskaho, range. I hope I said that. Anyway, he had a horse, a few pack animals, and a stash of winter supplies hidden up in a ravine. Jerky, flour, a tin stove, and the last of his whiskey. Well, when he had returned from hunting run in December, he found his camp looted, his horses gone, and the stove missing, and his jerky stripped from the rafters. Now, we've learned a lot right there. We've learned that he carried a tin stove, probably like one of those bug out stoves that you see in the movies or on advertised on TV, but it's probably a little heavier duty than that.
Yeah, and
Your horse.
They were made out of tin, and like a tin roof kind of tin, and that's where the modern day folding stove came from. Was from way back when.
Yeah, yes, it did. Anyway, his horse was gone, the stove was missing, and the jerky stripped from the rafters. Now that's interesting. So you smoke your jerky, and then of course the cabin's smoky, and the smoke rises, and you put your meat up there, and it keeps getting smoked all the time. Keeps it away from the bugs too.
Yes.
It was okay. So it wasn't the crows this time.
Speaking of the smoke, I'm sorry, I'm interjecting again, but you got me started. In the South, because of so many mosquitoes, it was customary for someone, in a bad mosquito area to go through the house at night or in the late evening and with some sage grass and smoke the house and chase the skeeters out.
Oh yeah.
And then they'd roll the windows up. It'd be hard, in the older houses. But anyway, so yeah, smoke still chases skeeters out now these days too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine. Okay, so good point. Anyway, this time it wasn't the crows; it was white horse thieves, meaning white man. And Johnson was madder than you can believe. The crow killer man, he growled at himself, and any man that'll rob him, Anyway, so he was pissed off. He found their tracks leading north, frozen to the edge of a creek bed. He followed them on foot for 3 days. No horse, no food, no snowshoes, a knife, and a Hawkeye rifle. Loaded with black powder, and it had to be kept dry or it'll be useless. On the fourth night, he spotted their camp. 3 men, all bundled tight around a fire, laughing and cooking his jerky on a stolen stove. His horse was tied up, nearby, hooves wrapped in burlap to muffle the sound. Did you know that they did that? To sneak their horses by Indians and these mountain men, they would wrap their horses' feet up in burlap so that they wouldn't make that clippity clop sound. I never knew that. I studied that.
around their feet. Yes.
Yep. Huh? They'd wrap them up in burlap so they didn't make any sound. That's how the horses always snuck around. You get it?
Yeah. Anyway. So also, to not leave certain tracks because burlap is that's gonna be weird. Yeah. But if it was really rocky, and so it gave the horses' hooves a chance to have a little padding. So they weren't stupid. So, but go ahead.
Well, Johnson watched from the trees, his breath rising in the clouds because it was so cold. But he didn't attack right away. Instead, he waited until they were asleep. Then he crept in, silent as snowfall, and cut their stirrups and their saddle straps. Took their flint, moved the horses just far enough to spook them. The next morning, when the thieves awoke, they found Johnson standing across the fire from them, rifle in hand and a grin on his bearded face. "Boys," he said, "you've been warm for the last night this winter." They reached for their pistols, but it wasn't no good. Johnson already had one man by his neck and the other by the wrist before they could yell. The third tried to run, but slipped on the ice and knocked himself out cold against a pine tree trunk. Johnson tied them up and made camp himself. He cooked up what was left of his own jerky, fed his horse, and sang off key for hours just to annoy them. Then came his real decision, what to do with these thieves. There were no courts in the mountains and no judges, and Johnson had never been much for rules, as we all know, he decided he wouldn't kill them. This wasn't crow business after all, but he'd teach them boys a lesson, one they wouldn't forget. He left their hands free, but took their boots, rifles, and flint, and sent them walking east towards Fort Kearny, 40 miles away, through snow, barefoot. And he told them, tell them Liver-Eating Johnson sent you. And don't steal from mountain men unless you like frostbite and shame. Well,
did you say shame?
To be yeah, because they're going to come in.
Right. Okay.
They're going to be shamed. Hey, what did you guys do?
To me, it sounded like chains. But shame. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you. Shame.
Well, yeah, you're walking a fort. You're barefoot. You're miserable. What happened to you? Yeah, Johnson got us stealing all his crap. Anyway, they made it.
No, it wasn't crap. It was stuff.
Stuff is important stuff. It's food. Food and stove. That
was all they had. It was important stuff,
And the horse. And the horse. That was probably a big thing.
Yeah, and the horse. Right.
Yeah. Well, these guys, they made it to the fort a week later, limping, shivering, and wrapped in tree bark and animal hides. One man lost a few toes, and the other lost an ear to frostbite. But all three were alive and never stole anything again. As for Johnson, he rode back to his camp, restocked his jerky, and spent the rest of the winter alone with his rifle and a bottle of whiskey, content to know the mountains still belonged to men who respected them. The other trappers would talk about this for years, and no one, not crow or thief, not even the law, crossed Johnson again without thinking twice. Because, he wasn't just a man, he was a legend. Now, this is all good and everything, but I want to tell you a little bit about his horse. He was known for having a particular horse. Because he was a big guy, he had, at one point, he had a really big horse, and it was black. Big black horse. And when he rode into town and people knew who he was, women would shut their doors and call their kids in. People would literally stay out of his way. Even the white man was afraid of him. I mean, it was quite the thing. Eventually, he was chasing some Crow Indians, and he chased them so hard and so fast and so long that his horse gave out and he had to put it down. Then he threw the saddle on his own back, carried it along, and walked another 5 or 10 miles to an Indian village where he traded and got a horse, another black horse, so he could keep on chasing the Crow Indians. I mean, I was thinking, man, this guy is just tough as wouldn't you? You'd think why would you use your horse so hard to chase these Indians down? Just give it a break. I mean, they're not going anywhere, or maybe they were. I don't know, but kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and if anybody ever remembers old westerns, one of the TV shows was Paladin.
Yeah.
And he wore black, had a black hat.
Yep.
And he sat up on a big black horse that had silver, bridles and stuff around him.
Yep.
Or, it had bridle studs on it. I mean, silver studs on it. So, but anyway, when you were talking about that, my brain went right to him because he was a big man too. So, yep. It's like, oh God, when he came into town, everybody in town would scurry. So, but anyway, so if anybody has seen that, that's what kind of guy, Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, like we said that, Paladin was a good show. That was rated one of the top 10 Western shows. I think it ran for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Richard Boone, that was the
yes,
guy.
Sir.
And it was a radio show for quite a few years too.
Yeah, there was a long running show between both mediums. Yep.
Yep. Have Gun Will Travel. That
There
was
you
it.
go.
Oh, I love that show. Yeah. Paladin, 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 where do you roam? Paladin, Paladin, far, far from home.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that show. And then he lived like a rich man in San Francisco. And then he had his little servant guy. Hey, boy. I always kept thinking, why does he call him? Hey, that's what he called him. Hey, boy. Hey, boy. Go get my paper. Hey, boy. To the little Chinese kid,
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I go get your paper now.
Oh, see, and that right there, right now is, that's racist,
Yeah.
Holy crap, oh, little Chinaman, little chink, what did you say, but back in the day, and, what was, like on Bonanza, Hop Sing,
Hop Sing,
you know, Hop Sing, and he was always, he was, oh, boss man, so it was interesting that they would include the Chinamen into the dialogue of four rich ranchers, as they're eating. And so the people who were writing the stories back then were actually showing us that, there was interracial stuff, and
yes.
that people weren't at each other's throats all the time with everybody.
Well, you know,
In a way, he would call it, hey, so, and that sort of got to be, what do you call it? An endearment,
yeah. Well, when you watch those movies, if you watch, a movie that was, based in the East, there was always, the black guy helping, or the black woman, helping. She was the maid of the house. She was what? Yes, yes, I'll wash your clothes. I'll go get your dinner, Mister, whoever she was addressing. I'm Gone with the Wind.
And him was like, yes, sir, massa.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, massa. I do it. Yes, sir, massa.
Yeah, but then if you go to the West, they didn't have that culture there. But who was coming from the West? All those Chinamen who helped build a railroad across this country. The Chinamen who dug the mines to mine the gold and the silver and the metals to make the railroads and things like that.
And they dug tunnels for the railroads.
They did all those.
There's a bunch of Chinamen folks that they're not to be, to sound, derogatory in any way. But no, there were folks, because, they'd go in and dig and do the thing, and then they'd plant the dynamite, and sometimes, the whole dadgum mountain would come down on them. So there's up in northeast Georgia, almost into South Carolina, they're in the national forest up there. There are the remains of a tunnel that a bunch of Chinamen lost their life in that, and they were trying to build a railroad through North Georgia through the mountains. And so they were working on this tunnel, and finally it was so dangerous they just gave up. So the train never made it through, and the mountain just kind of gobbled it up. But there's the history in places that, the Chinamen did what? Well, a bunch of them lost their lives in trying to dig a tunnel in North Georgia, for example. So anyway.
There I am. I'm back. Anyway, no, you're right. The way things worked back then, things moved around, and they used those guys to do the dirty jobs. And remember that there was always the Chinese guy that was the laundry guy. Chinese laundry, Chinese food, Chinese this, Chinese that. It was always the guy, and they were all. There was never the rich Chinese guy that run the show. It was always the poor Chinese guy doing all the work.
No, but see, that was because the rich Chinese guy, it's sort of like in India,
Yeah.
there are different sects, there are different castes of people. And if you're from a different, I mean, Republican, Democrat, Independent, just think that in a minute, but you're from a certain family group. And if you're from the Democrat family, then no, man, you can't muddle with the Republicans or the other folk. All you can do is remarry within your group. You can't marry a cousin, but you can marry within your group. So it's like that. And I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
Well, anyway, so it's very interesting, everybody. Go out, look for the crow killer guy. Go research some of that yourself. There's a bunch of stuff on Spotify and YouTube and stories. There's many more stories out there. I mean, there was one thing on there was like 7 hours long, and I was like, I can't listen for 7 hours. There was one for 4 hours, and I was like, man, I'm trying to get through all of that. I'm probably going to listen to more of it, but really interesting story. This guy, like I said, he was a lawman. He was in the Navy. He was in the military, the Civil War. I heard that in the Civil War, he one of the stories was that he went there. They gave him a rifle, and he didn't like it. So he just went back and got his own Hawkeye gun because he was more familiar with it. And I thought that was kind of interesting on that part. Let's see what else was there, but just a fighter through and through. I mean, talk about the biggest thing I think it was with him is he had like no fear. It was like, well, I'm going, they killed my wife with my unborn child, and I don't care if I die, I'm going to go get the whole tribe. I'm going to get them all. I'm going to get the one that killed my woman and blah, 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 whatever I have to do. And if I die in the process, I don't care. I think it had to be the attitude he had.
Yeah. And, it took him years to do it, right? I can't imagine being mad for that long or carrying a grudge for that long. And it's like, oh, there's another crow, scalp,
and
eventually after the first 10, I'd be like, oh, okay, that,
Eventually, at the end, he did make up with the Crow Indians and became a friend of the Crow. I suppose it's because he was a brave warrior, in their eyes.
And they honored him. But it wasn't until he found his wife's scalp, though.
Yes.
He didn't make up until after that, though.
Yeah, and
I'm sure that after he got his wife's scalp, that was like, okay, I got the guy. I got a bunch of folks before him. Maybe I should, rest this now. So that's good that he made up with him. You know what I mean? As far as the end of the
well, we don't know what happened either to, what did he really talk about with Bear Claw? I mean, from what it said was Bear Claw basically said to him, listen, you've done your part. Now it's time for me to fulfill my vengeance. And, let me have this. I could see them talking that way. Like,
oh, yeah, and passing the pipe, and having an elder in there and, and yeah, absolutely.
And, your fight is over, mine is yet to come, and then when it's all said and done, we can move on with our lives. Because I'm sure the chief was wise enough too to say, listen, hey, you can't go on like this your whole entire life. Eventually you have to let things rest, and this was the way we're going to do it. We're going to get rid of those guys. You got rid of this guy, and we're going to settle it. And I'm going to leave it at that, because I think that's kind of where it was. But I think that's how they would have handled it. I'm thinking if I was a chief, that's what I would have said. Don't you?
Yeah, I think that the old chief would have looked at him and said, enough is enough.
Yeah, exactly.
He would have said, enough is enough,
Mm-hmm.
And but because he had his wife's scalp, he was like, okay, I don't know if he would have agreed before he got her scalp. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, he was on a mission.
Getting her scalp had a lot to do with,
Yes, I do. Well, that's my part of the thing for tonight. I hope you all enjoyed that, because guess what we got? We got a story for you tonight. And it ain't no crow killer story, is it?
But I don't think so. No.
But yeah, no, I hope you enjoyed that. Next week we'll have more. I can't believe how many different mountain man stories there are out there. We might do like Jim Bridger. There's like half a dozen other ones I've never even heard of. And I got a trapper's book, and then I got this really interesting one I've been and it's called The Prairie Traveler. I know you wanted to hear about this book. It's a 1859 handbook for westbound pioneers. And I'm thinking, wow, this reads like an advertisement. It's like, woohoo, you can go out there and go into the country, but you should, and it gives you pointers. You should be armed if you go to Indian territory. You should carry a rifle and a revolver.
So it was sort of like the Sears Roebuck catalog of of how to Indian do Indian territory.
Yeah, you want to settle out west? Well, you just get yourself a wagon, and get yourself a barrel of pork and beans and flour, and get your family together and carry your rifle and a revolver and head west. I'm just thinking, oh boy, I can't wait to talk about this one. So anyway,
and it doesn't say how many bullets you should take.
No.
Take a handful of bullets for your revolver just in case.
Depends on what kind of revolver.
The land is open. There's nothing there until 50 Indians ride up on you.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, here's the story. Sparrows search for rain. You're up. I'm going to bow out. The show is all yours.
All right. Well, give me a second here then. I'm working on I look at the story on a different program than what is on here, because I can adjust. Oh, come on. What did it do? Come back here.
Uh-oh, you having some problems?
I got it.
Oh, okay.
It's just too many windows and things. I got it. Okay. I'm sorry, my pages jumped, and I got to back up through my stories. So Give me a minute, please. I'm sorry. Technical difficulties for the moment. Come on, go back up to the top.
It happens every now and then. That's all right. We'll just take our time. We don't want to have some dead air here. But anyway.
Well, at least I'm running my mouth,
That's right. We'll keep talking then. I don't want to leave you high and dry.
And I mean, I had it all set up, the top of the page, and I closed it, I shut it off, and we were talking about what we were talking about, and
yeah, we got a whole crew in the house. Elderberry, Richard, the Red. We got
lost our spot.
Chloe went to bed, but I think Witchy Moon's in the house and a few others. So hey, why don't you guys put in the chat what's your favorite Western? Is it Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Paladin, Have Gun Will Travel, The Rifleman, Laredo, The Virginian, how many others? The Lone Ranger, Maverick, man, there's a whole
Did you say Bonanza?
Bonanza, yes. Is that one of your top ones? Gunsmoke, Bonanza. What other ones were out there? The Rifleman, the Virginian, High Chaparral, Bat Masterson, Blazing Saddles. That was a movie, Lucky. Blazing Saddles was a movie. I'm talking TV show. They had tons of those TV show. Wild Wild West, yes, where he made Robert Conrad, and they made he made inventions, and he worked for the government, and he solved. Oh, yep. Elderberry says, Have Gun Will Travel. Susie Q says Wild Wild West. That was good. The Wild Wild West wasn't on very long. Have Gun Will Travel. That was on like for 5-6 years. John Price is in the house. Let's see. Gunsmoke. Elderberry says Gunsmoke. Yes, Gunsmoke was on. It was one of the longest running shows out there. I think it was on for like almost 20 years. Bonanza was right behind him at like 15 or so years, something like that. What other good Western shows? Alias Smith and Jones. Yes, that was a good one. Then there was I'm thinking of all the other ones out there. Roy Rogers had his TV show. That was always pretty good. Gene Autry, he had Western shows and TV shows, actually. We think about them. There was 104 episodes a while. Was it? Yeah, they used to put out like 30 episodes or so a year. And so that was on what, 2-3 years? Yeah, something like that. F Troop. Yes, F Troop. I forgot all about it.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that was good. What else was there? There was one, the Magnificent Seven. There was a TV show. The Lone Ranger. Yep, Lone Ranger. That was on for quite a few years back in the 50s. Made a few movies, too. I got them here. I watched one Lone Ranger movie here not long ago. But anyway.
Okay, I've got it set up. If it doesn't mess with me, so
if you're ready,
you all keep your fingers crossed.
It's all.
All right, so sorry for the delay, but it is what it is. So tonight's story, I am still reading from the book Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Cyrus McMillan, 1922. And this particular chapter in the book is titled Sparrow's Search for Rain. Sparrow's Search for Rain. Long ago, in a village near the sea, many Indian people were living. Among them was a very nice old warrior who had been given great power at his birth, and who therefore could do many wonderful deeds. There was nothing that was beyond his understanding, for he knew all things. His wife had long been dead, but he had one daughter. She was very beautiful and gentle, and she was as nearly perfect as any woman could be. She took no interest in frivolous things, and she lived a very quiet life. But all the people liked her well, and she was always welcome wherever she went. Her old father was very proud of her, and he said boastfully, "She has inherited much of my wisdom, and someday she will marry a great man." But the girl, on her part, had little thought of marriage or of men, for she said they had small minds, and she would rather live alone than listen always to their boasting and their foolish chatter. Soon the daughter's fame spread far and wide through the seacoast villages, and many suitors came seeking for her hand. But her father said, "I have nothing to say. She will make her own choice. She must please herself, for today children please themselves and not their parents." And she said, "I will marry only someone who can amuse me and interest me and keep me company. I have scant liking for dull people." One day, Loon came to her. He was very good looking, although he was somewhat tall and skinny, and his neck was a bit longer and more scrawny than ordinary. But he wore good clothes, and he had great skill as a fisherman. He came because he thought that he was very handsome, and he believed that his good looks would win the maiden. But she had no love for Loon, for he had not a word to say. When she talked to him, he only started at last. He burst out into a loud and foolish laughter. Then the maiden said, "You have a small mind like the others." And in disgust, she withdrew from his presence. Then Fox came in an effort to win the maiden as his wife, and for a whole day he cut capers and chased his tail round and round in a circle, trying to amuse the serious girl. But he did not succeed very well, and like Loon, he departed in despair. And many others came, but they met the same fate. And at last the girl decided to see no more of them, but to live alone with her father. The young men of the village were all very angry because the girl had spoken of them all so scornfully. And often they talked among themselves of her proud and haughty air. "She calls us scatterbrains," said one. "She says we have small minds," said another. "She must pay for these insults," said a third. So they vowed that they would somehow break her proud spirit and bring her sorrow because of her ideas and her decision to stay single all of her life. One of the great men of the village was Whirlwind. He could make himself invisible, and he was often guilty of many wicked pranks. So the young men went to him and asked his aid in humbling the pride of the haughty maid. As they were talking to him, they saw the girl approaching not far off, and quite unawares, Whirlwind rushed towards her and knocked her down in the mud and tore her hat from her head and swept it into the sea. The young men looked on at her plight and they laughed loudly. And the girl was very much ashamed. She went back home and told her father what had happened and showed him her soiled clothes and her blown hair falling about her face. Her father was very angry and he said, Whirlwind must pay for this. He shall be banished at once. Then her father went to the chief and made complaint against Whirlwind. And the chief decreed that Whirlwind must leave the village forthwith. He did not consider very carefully that the result of this decree and what it might be, and he acted hastily and without thought, for he feared to differ from the wise man. So Whirlwind prepared to leave the place. Now his best friend was Rain. Rain had been born without eyes. He was black blind, and Whirlwind always had to lead him along wherever he wished to go. So Rain said, If you are leaving the village, I want to leave it too, for I cannot live here without you. I will be helpless if I have no one who can lead me. So the two set out together, Whirlwind leading old Rain along by his side. Where they went, no man knew, for they had told everybody of their des- destination. They were gone for many months before the people missed them very much. Then their absence began to be felt in all the land, for there was no wind and there was no rain. At last, the chief summoned a council, and the decree of banishment against Whirlwind was revoked. The people decided to send messengers to the two wandering ones to tell them what had happened and to bring them back. So they first sent Fox out on the quest. Fox went through the land for many weeks, running as fast as he could over many roads, in and out among the marshy lake shores and over high wooded mountains. He searched every cave and crevice, but he had no success. Not a leaf or a blade of grass was stirring, and the country was all parched, and the grass was withered, brown, and the streams were all getting dry. At last, after a fruitless search, he came home and shamefully confessed that his quest had failed. Then the people called on Bear to continue the search, and Bear went lumbering over the earth, sniffing the air and turning over logs and great rocks with his powerful shoulders, and venturing into deep caverns. And he had many inquiries. And he asked the mountain ash, "Where's Whirlwind?" But mountain ash said, "I do not know. I have not seen him for many months." And he asked the red fir, and he asked the pine, and the aspen, which always sees Whirlwind first. But they were all ignorant of his whereabouts. So Bear came home and said, "Not a trace of either of them have I found." The chief was very angry because of the failure of Fox and of Bear. But the wise man said, "The animals are useless in a quest like this. Let us try the birds. They often succeed where the animals fail." And the chief agreed, for the land was in great distress. Many fishing boats lay silent on the sea near the coast, unable to move because Whirlwind was away, and the wells and streams were all dry because rain was absent, and the grass and the flowers were withering to decay. So they called the birds to their aid. The great crane searched in the shallows and among the reeds, thrusting his long neck into deep places. And Crow looked among the hills, and Kingfisher flew far out to sea. But they all came back and said, "We too have failed. The wandering ones are nowhere on the land or upon the sea." Then little Sparrow took up the search. Before he set out, he plucked from his breast a small down feather and fastened it to a stick no bigger than a wisp of hay. He held the stick in his bill and flew off. For many days he went towards the Southland, all the time watching the feather hanging to the stick in his bill. But it hung there motionless. One day, after he had traveled a great distance, he saw the down feather moving very gently, and he knew that Whirlwind must not be far away. He went in the direction from which the feather was blowing. Soon he saw beneath him soft green grass and wonderful flowers of a variety of colors, and trees with green leaves and many rippling streams of running water. Then he said to himself, "At last I have found the wanderers." He followed a little stream for some distance until it ended in a cave in the hills. In front of the cave, many flowers were blooming, and the grass was soft and green, and the tall grasses were nodding their heads very gently. He knew that those he was seeking were inside, and he entered the cave very quietly. Just beyond the door, a fire was smoldering, and near it lay Rain and Whirlwind, both fast asleep. Sparrow tried to wake them with his bill and his cries, but they were sleeping too soundly. Then he took a coal from the fire and put it on Rain's back. But it spluttered and fizzled and soon went out. He tried another, but the same thing happened. Then he took a third coal, and this time Rain woke up. He was much surprised to hear a stranger in the cave, but he could not see him because he was blind. So he woke up Whirlwind to protect him. Then Sparrow told them of the great trouble in the North Country and of the great hardships and sorrow their absence had brought to the people, and of how sadly they had been missed, and of the decision of the council to call them back. And Whirlwind said, "We shall return tomorrow if we are so badly needed. You may go back and tell your people that we are coming. We shall be there the day after you arrive." So Sparrow, feeling very proud of his success, flew back home. But when he arrived after many days, he went first to his own people to tell them the good news. And the sparrow people all gathered together and held a feast of celebration. And they twittered and danced and made a great hubbub in their excitement because Rain was coming back tomorrow. Then Sparrow went to the chief and said, "Oh, chief, I found Rain and Whirlwind, and tomorrow they will be here." And he told the story of his flight to the south and of his discovery. And the chief said, "Because of your success, you will never be hunted for game or killed for food." The next morning, the two travelers who had been so long away came back to the land. And Whirlwind came first, and great clouds of dust foretold his coming. And the sea dashed high against the rocks, and the trees shrieked and tossed their heads, all dancing gaily because of his return. When Whirlwind had passed by, Rain came along, following closely because of his blindness. For several days, Rain stayed with the people, and the flowers bloomed, and the grass was green again, and the wells and streams were no longer dry. And since that time, wind and rain have never long been absent from the Atlantic coast. And to this day, the sparrow people know when rain is coming. And to signal his approach, they gather together and twitter and hop along and make a great hubbub, just as they did when their ancestor found him by means of his down feather in the old days. But the Indians have been true to the chief's promise, and they will not hunt sparrows for food or for their feathers, for they remember that all of the birds that it was old Sparrow who long ago searched successfully for the rain. The end. So it's one of those stories. There have been other stories written by white people, and that, it's sort of like the least of us went out and did the quest and was able to succeed where others had failed. It's the puny guy that can barely hold the sword up, and he wins. He
Mhm.
slays the dragon or whatever. But so this is a story that is similar in plot, if you know what I mean. So it's a good story. I have heard it before, but not from this book, and it was told in a different way. So that is our story for tonight. And let me see. This program is so touchy.
Hmm.
Let's see. Next week's story is Rainbow and the Autumn Leaves. So, that's a little precursor for next week's show. I hope you all like that.
Rainbow and the autumn leaves. That sounds good.
Yep, Rainbow and the
Cool.
Autumn Leaves.
Cool, cool, cool.
Yep.
Wow, that is great. Get
What
ready. Oh,
Well, I thought I was going to be.
ready for cards?
Yeah, I've been looking for them.
You can't find the cards?
Nope.
Goodness, it's not like you. You had a show last night, didn't you?
Yeah,
I
for a long time.
was like, I got up this morning and there was like, there's a live last night. I'm thinking, holy cow.
Yeah, towards the end, it was just a free for all. I was talking about stuff and reading from the chat and reacting and being crazy. Then I was getting tired and being really crazy, and so I was like, "What the hell?" You know, it's my show. I'm not trying to make anybody, feel bad or whatever. And, I'm going to say and do what I want. I wasn't being mean or using curse words much.
Yep.
Um, what have I done? The cards are always right here. That's weird.
Hmm. Yes, it is.
Um, which kind of sort of brings me um, to a question, since we're trying to do a little filler here for a minute. What did I do? They're in a plastic bag so they don't get wet. Where are they? That there has been some heavy duty um, electrons coming off of the sun, and
Yep.
there have been a lot of people talking about how that energy, it seems to have affected them.
Yep.
And on Thursday of last week, part of what I was talking about this morning, that Thursday of last week, I was standing out there at the canoe, and it was all of a sudden I felt this something bumped into me, and then it felt like it was passing through me.
Huh.
It was the strangest dadgum feeling, but I mean it physically was like when it bumped into me, it was like, excuse me, I'm passing through.
Huh.
It literally passed through. So, but other people have said that now, not that they felt it that way, but around last Thursday they were having similar feelings.
Hmm.
So, I was curious if anybody last Thursday felt any kind of something. You know, there's some folks that it has made them feel crazy. I know it has made me feel, I have to use the word irritated, because it's an irritable feeling, just kind of jumpy and twitchy. And um, I'm looking for the cards, I swear to God. What did I do with them?
Okay,
Oh
people,
no.
put your guesses in for the cards. Hey, remember while you're doing that, go over to Nina's channel and go on her Streamlabs, get yourself a shirt with my mug on it. She's gonna make up a shirt next for me and David for the Native American Myths and Legends. So as soon as you get me a picture, we will
Yeah.
we'll be getting our own T-shirt. Woohoo! How about that?
Man, this is crazy.
Go buy yours now. Hey, they got these cool mugs with my mug on it, and or these cool sticker things at the Anakarana, and you can get these little books, and you can get pictures, or you can get my sticker and put it on anything. Anyway, that's all up to you people. I like wearing my shirt around. Support the Milky Way Soul Tribe. Go over there and get yourself a shirt, because pretty soon the design is going to change. Because who wants to have my mug on your mug all the time? That kind of rhymes, doesn't it? I'm good at that.
I'm a soul man.
I'm a soul man. Yeah. Oh, we were just talking about all the different westerns. Man, I tell you, I miss those good old days when they had good shows on TV. They don't put too many good shows on TV anymore. Shows on TV are far and few between, put it that way. At least in my brain they are.
Well, y'all, this is really strange.
Oh, Duggar got him. That's what it was. Elderberry says, weird negative energy irritates you. Yes, coming from the sun. There's Mary Winds all the way from the West Coast.
Yeah, I pulled some cards for Mary Wynn.
Yep, Elderberry, go get yourself a mug. I got a coffee mug. I got a tin mug. I got this wine tumbler. There's big things. There's little things. There's all kinds of stuff. Go get yourself a coffee mug with my mug on it.
Now, see, I had them cards this morning because I did cards for Mary Wynn.
Oh, you did. Oh, there you go. She says hi, everyone. Oh, what you mean still around? John Price.
And so my point is, these cards should be right the heck here.
Yep. Take them into another room or something.
I mean, I've only been around in the house today.
Oh.
So, what have I done? You know, the poltergeist thing, they hide things from me all the time. You know?
I know.
And it's like, all right, guys, what the hell did you do with them? You know? And so this is one of those times it's like, all right, who's playing with the cards? And here they are. I found them.
Good deal.
You know, they're in the last place that you look, you know, is always where you find them.
It is. It absolutely is true.
All right, let me get a drink and get the cards out. And I got out of breath, and when I get out of breath, I don't seem to read cards well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, y'all. Have they been picking their cards?
Yes, they are. They have. Oh, they got a lot of different cards picked. So we got everything from let's see, let's go back here. I was putting them up fox, fish, frog, bear, porcupine, and dolphin. That's what Lucky says. Witchy Moon says elk, bear, fox, or frog, fox, and whale. Let's see what else we got. It took the first place. You look. Okay, looking. Yeah, I am gonna pick badger, and then I'm gonna pick something smart. Because I'm thinking of the times that we're in. I'm thinking badger. I'm thinking deer for being calm. Badger for being brave.
Badger feels aggressive.
Aggressive. Okay, aggressive. And then I'm gonna pick owl for. I'm picking owl.
Wisdom.
Wisdom. Yes, because we need a little wisdom right now. And then for my final pick, I'm gonna say we need. What am I gonna say? We need deer. Deer. There you go. Those are my picks.
Hang on a second. This thing's giving me some kind of. Do you want to do? No. All right. So the shuffle is done.
Yep.
I did cards last night for Mary Wins.
Yep.
7 cards.
Holy cow, Mary, you are a special
man. It was like, but they, it was the message. It read.
Okay. John Price, there is no pig and there's no monkey. Guess again. So sorry about that. There is a fox, or there is a rabbit, there is a bear. Well, I like bear too. I think I'm going to go with bear. I like that part. There is no monkey. There is a dog or wolf, I think. I think there is dog. Anyway, Mary Wentz is awesome. There's a raven. There's a whale, and owl, elk, and dolphin. Yes, Mary's got them all. She's got them all. There you go. So, John Price, come on. Fox, rabbit, bear. You can't have a pig, can't have a monkey. You got a dog. And you could do a dog. I think we did dog.
I've already pulled dog. It's the first card up.
Woo! Right on, dog.
Okay, so you can skip dog from the rest of the way out. Whatever you're picking. I've just picked ant.
Ant. Okay.
Yeah, y'all are talking animals, but you leave out you leave out the bugs, but you also leave out the birds too. So
birds. Yeah, turkey. Turkey's in there.
And swan.
Swan. We had swan last week. But sometimes these cards keep coming up week after week, and they're trying to teach us a lesson, people. So if they come up week after week, it's one of those things that we didn't get the message the first time, but sometimes they come up to benefit another card. Like if you have Badger, you have to have something to balance Badger out. That's kind of it, right? Or to go along with Badger, like, something with wisdom to go with the bravery or something like that, right?
Well, Badger is about being aggressive, as a healer, because Badger is the aggressive healer, because it lives underground with all the herbs and roots and things. And so Badger is is female energy. Yeah, don't mess with my hut. But so it's aggressiveness, but not not so much in a mean way, aggressive healer or aggressive, in protection. You don't want to mess with a badger. No white man is going to want to mess with a badger. They're going to go, I don't think so. So, and badger also is sort of like skunk, and because skunk is about reputation,
Yeah.
And so,
Okay, so we got.
I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of cards.
I'm just waiting for you to name them out, man. Owl
Yeah.
and Badger. Yeah,
Well,
that
guess what card I just pulled up?
Badger.
Yep.
Yeah, see?
And Swan. They came up sort of together. I got to put the Swan card there because that might mean something. It did the other night, or when I was doing the cards. It
Yep.
was like, I don't know. I'm not sure if this card should go with it, and it did. I had to dig it out of the pile. Okay, we have dog, ant, weasel, um, badger upside down, and swan upside down. Those are the two that came out together. So that's interesting.
Huh.
And this next card is buffalo, and it may be the last card because I'm running out of cards. So it feels like that's the last one.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. So the last card is buffalo up.
Okay. Well, who got most of it right? Well, John Price got Badger. He also got Dog. So 2 for him. Let's see. I'm going back here. Let's see. What did Lucky have? Witchy Moon had elk, bear, fox, frog, and whale. You got 0. Lucky had fox, fish, frog, bear, porcupine, and dolphin. You got 0. Well, it looks like John Price did the best, and that I can see. I think Mary had something. She had something. Mary wins had raven, whale, owl, elk, and dolphin. Wrong. John Price is the winner tonight. He has picked what? 1, 2, 3 or so of the cards. Dog. He got the badger. He got holy cow. Woo!
So this reading is for you. Well, Mary wins. She was naming cards that I pulled last night or early this morning. So,
yeah, John Price, you're the winner. You got a bunch of them. So good for you. Good for you. This is your card reading, obviously, because you were remote viewing this stuff. Can you believe that?
Yeah, because somebody said dog, and I had just finished shuffling and turned the cards in my hands, and flipped through the first couple of cards, and I turned I got the ones that I went through in this hand, and I flipped it up and looked, and it was dog. And then somebody said dog like right after that, and I was like, okay, I guess it's dog.
Yeah, John Price had dog and he had badger. So there you go. You got more than anybody else. No fox, no rabbit, no bear, but you got the dog and the badger, and that's.
And we've got weasel,
more than anybody else.
and we've got the elegance of swan, and we've got buffalo as the as the giveaway, the great giveaway. Here I am for the people, take me.
Yep.
Ant is very industrious. You can't beat what the ant's doing. As far as working, and they work together, but not necessarily as a hive mind. So anyway, give me a second here, and I'll be right with you.
Absolutely. Gotta love the dog card. Dog spelled backwards is what? They'll love you all the time, no matter what you do to them. Dogs are like the best companion ever. They care about you. They'll sit by you. They'll give you lots of attention. You feed them, they'll be right there by your side. And yep, I got 3 of them. I love them all. Oh, my dog's more than people. So.
Yeah, and at the moment I've only got Duggar.
Yeah, well, you know.
But
Duggar.
he's a good old dog. All right, so speaking of dog number 14.
Unconditional love, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, and follow along in your prayer books. We'll be, looking for dog. It's on page 43. Wait, 93. I need to go have my eyes operated on tomorrow. So
yeah, when is that? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, 8:30 in the morning. Yep.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was coming up so fast.
Yeah, if anybody was watching, I was putting eye drops in my eye.
Yeah, I see you do that.
I have to do it 4 times. So, but anyway, yeah, that's what I was doing. Eye drops were in the morning for when they operate. So, yeah, when y'all see me next week, I'll have a new lens.
Nice. You'll be able to read those.
I hope so. I hope so. It'd make it easier to read the small print. Anyway, I might have to close the left eye for 2 weeks until I get the left eye done. They're going to do both eyes. So, but tomorrow is the right eye, and then on the 18th of June will be the left eye. So, but anyway, back to the cards. A dog is about loyalty. So, dog has been considered the servant of humanity throughout history. If a person carries dog medicine, he or she is usually serving others or serving humanity. Serving humanity, because this is a group thing. Here you will find the charity worker, the philanthropist, and etc. Dog was the servant soldier that guarded the tribe's lodges from surprise attacks. So think about that. Our job as in loyalty, and there, you look around in the world today and who's loyal to what, But so loyalty is a big deal, and we need to learn that going forward, all of us. Loyalty to each other, But anyway, so a dog is the guardian. Throughout history, dog has been the guardian of hell as well as of ancient secrets, hidden treasures, and babies. So dogs take care of babies. That's a for true thing. So, and as our dog energy is coming along, that means we need to make sure that and that's true. There are a lot of babies that need some guidance because their parents are, I'm thinking of somebody, their parents are stupid. If dog has been yelled at or paddled, it still returns love to the person who was the source of the bad behavior. So dog is loyal to a point where the dog would die. And many dogs have died because their masters were crazy. Dog medicine. I'm having trouble. It's a prentice small. Dog medicine asks you to look at how readily your sense of loyalty or is countermanded by your need for approval. If you have pulled the dog card, there are several questions you need to consider depending on the situation about which you are asking. Have I recently forgotten that I owe any allegiance to my personal truth in life? Do you have That's a good one. Have I recently forgotten that I owe my allegiance to my personal truth in life? In other words, for me, I found out that, I got to be doing this, right? This is my personal thing in life. And so, have I recently forgot that I owe my allegiance? So, no, I haven't, but there are some people who, they still have the talent and they still have all this stuff, but they haven't kept the allegiance to themselves. Like, hey, dude, you should be doing this over here. Forget about it. So, allegiance to yourself. Is it possible that gossip or the opinions of others have jaded your loyalty to a certain friend or group? In other words, if somebody, been whispering in your ear, that guy over there, like, that Trump guy, he's bad. He's orange man. He's bad. So it could be that, but it's about loyalty. Who have you been loyal to? And who's been disloyal to you? Maybe it's time to give up that old master, you know. Number three, have I denied or ignored someone who is trying to be my loyal friend? So it might be we're humming along and somebody calls and blah, 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 and I have a situation like that. And in my spirit talks, it's like, dude, he might call you at 2 in the morning, but he's your friend. Yeah, but he calls me at 2 in the morning, and the answer back to me is like, but you're usually not doing a god dog thing at 2 in the morning, so shut up. Now, number four in this is, have I been loyal and true to my goals? There again, what is the creator given you as goals in life? Have you been true to them? Well, there's loyalty and right there for dogs. So whatever's coming up, you know, um, that's an important part of it. Now, and what I'm thinking of it now, it's straight up. But what I'm thinking of, there are sometimes in order for something to happen correctly, you got to run from that master that ain't feeding you. And well, here you go. So dog is like, be loyal, and ant's the next card up, and it says to be patient. Kind of answered that problem with the dog, huh? So
Mhm.
ant people are active, community-minded folk who see the greater future needs of their they see the future needs of their own. Ant will burrow a conical hole with its apex at the bottom. The ant will correct itself and patiently wait for some unsuspecting insect to fall in. Patience does have its rewards. Ant people have a knowing about the sweet victory at the end of the line. There is never a concern about going without. If they are late for the opening of a sale, if what they want is sold out, they are sure that something else of equal or better value will be available to them. And I have had that happen to me over the years. Oh man, the last one is gone, and somebody say, "Well, man, I got one stashed in the back." There was a run on the boxes, and do you want it? I got Mister Dolly in the back. Really, stuff like that does happen. So, and it is patience, but it's upside down. So where ant people are patient, they work together to achieve something. So if you know in your heart you were meant to do something, and that might not be save the world, but between all of us, we can save the world, especially when we think about it, right? So watch out, here comes the sting. If you are in a hurry, you may fall prey to those who are not working for the good of the whole of humanity. So we need to make sure we support the folks who are working for all of humanity. Those individuals who make greed a way of life prey on the fear and urgency of those who have forgotten natural and tribal law. Let me read that part again. Those individuals who make greed a way of life prey on the fear and the urgency of those who, like me, have forgotten natural and tribal law. They have forgotten it. It's easy money if they pick on us poor people. If this warning applies to you, become aware of users and con artists. Well, the government's been con arting us for a while. In the contrary position, and also teaches you to trust natural law. If you do, humanity always follows. Your silly impatience will bring Coyote to aid you in sabotaging your plans for the future if you allow your panic to outweigh your rational sensibilities. In other words, yeah, go ahead and do it. And when you do, Coyote's going to come by and stick you with something's going to happen. So the key here is to honor the will of the Great Spirit so that mountains are not made out of anthills. So the patience thing, and right next to dog now. So the next one up is weasel. Golly, number 33. It's on the next page. That was weasel is about stealth. Okay, and now weasel's upside down. So weasel has an incredible amount of energy and ingenuity. It is difficult power. Is a difficult power totem to have. It is not without significance that the ermine or weasel pelt is worn by royalty. Weasel ears hear everything. Chief sent Weasel out to the enemy camps to smoke them for answers. What are the medicines of the other tribes? The chiefs would ask Weasel upon its return, and Weasel never failed to give him an accurate number or what was going on inside the camp. So, stealth is the big thing about Weasel. Now he's upside down. In contrary, Weasel in your cards, if so, look out for intrigue. Someone may be using covert tactics to weasel into the hen house. Somebody might be trying to weasel into your life or a situation or something. And perhaps you should lock your doors and dress your teenage daughter in, a long dress. Um, this can, this, ca- there might be something that you know is true, but someone may be lying to you. For instance, storming the refrigerator at 3 a.m. and then you lie about it in the next morning. That's one. Another message of reversed weasel is to acknowledge why you have been doubting your feelings. So you got to have patience. And dog is being loyal. So now weasel is saying, are you doubting your feelings? So that seems to fit with the other two cards. Are you doubting your feelings? Um, if you want to right your situation, start by shaking the dullness out of your head and observing the obvious. No one can fool you if you watch your step. Honor your knowing. Seek the hidden reasons and use discretion in the process. So use the stealth, but um, are you not honoring yourself? Um, so that's interesting. And the next one up is Swan. And so young Swan, flew in and 39. Swan is grace, of course. Little Swan flew through the dream time, looking for the future. She rested for a moment in the coolness of the pond, looking for looking to find a way to find the point to the future. This was a moment of confusion for Swan, and she knew that she had happened into the dream time quite by accident. This was her first flight alone, and she was a bit concerned by the dream time landscape. As Swan looked high above Sacred Mountain, she saw the biggest swirling black hole she had ever seen. Dragonfly came along and said, Swan, that is the doorway to the other planes of imagination. I have been guardian of the illusions for many, many moons. If you want to enter there, you would have to ask permission and earn the right to go. Swan was not sure that she wanted to enter that black hole. She asked Dragonfly what was necessary for her to earn the right. And Dragonfly replied, You must be willing to accept whatever the future holds for you as it is presented without trying to change Great Spirit's plan. Swan looked at her ugly little duckling body and then answered, I will be happy to abide by Great Spirit's plan. I won't fight the currents of the black hole. I will surrender to the flow of the spiral and trust what I am shown. Dragonfly was very happy with Swan and answered, and began to spin the magic to break the pond's illusion. And suddenly, Swan was engulfed by a whirlwind, a whirlpool in the center of the pond. Swan reappeared many days later and talked to Dragonfly. Dragonfly, I've learned to surrender my body to the power of the Great Spirit. And I was taken to where the future lives. I saw many wonders high on Sacred Mountain, and because of my faith and my acceptance, I have been changed. I have learned to accept the state of grace. Dragonfly was very happy for Swan. Now I'm switching to the upside down because Swan is. So, the ugly duckling story is right here. But, the fact that Swan accepted grace from the Creator. And so, but upside down, if it's in reverse, it is warning that you must acknowledge what you know. You must acknowledge what you know. Acknowledge, acknowledge acknowledge your knowledge. Dang it. Acknowledge what you know. So stop denying your future feelings and and klutzing up. Quit klutzing up. You may be bumping into furniture or forgetting what you are saying in mid sentence. Yeah, that's happening to me here lately. If so, this is a sign that you are not grounded. Jump in place and hold the top of your head as you do so. This will get you back in touch with the earth and keep you from wandering into a dreamy reality that lessens your focus. A bath will help, as does going barefoot or doing some gardening. Upside down swan um, is what? So, swan is also showing about the evolving spirit. So, swan reverse says that you need to pay some attention to your body. All right. It can seem as if you are flying without a pilot's license. And I feel that way sometimes, I swear. If you are not aware of when you take off or land, not recognizing the shift from left brain to the right brain, and to be common when you are evolving spiritually. So, if you're trying to evolve and you just stay in the one side, the physical side, you got to slide into the other. This is all part of developing the intuitive side of your nature. So Swan is trying to help you to go into that, and that's interesting. Sort of like a segue. So think about that. Accept the grace and allow yourself to be aware of your own talents and believe it. How many times have I been said it? You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe that core value of yourself. And the cards even say so. So number 29 is Badger. All these cards are together right in here tonight. That's just interesting. Well, that's a lie. This card's a little further back. Well, that's a 29. Okay. I'm reading it upside down. We almost done. We got two more. We got two more cards, and I think I see how Badger can help wrap this up. Badger is aggressiveness, and Badger is upside down. But Badger represents the female side and aggressive healing, because Badger lives underground with the roots and tubers and things, which are the sort of like the you know, it's the magic of nature with being able to know what root is right to cure something, right? So with that said, if Badger is a part of your medicine, you are quick to express your feelings and you do not care what the consequences are. But see, now in this spread, there's Ant who's telling you to be patient. So because the card's upside down, you have a tendency to, be hanging there for a while, and you'll accept that. Um, Badger upside down, he's PO'd. This could mean that you are being chewed out by someone else, or that you have expressed your anger in an unhealthy way. So if you spouted around and said something outlandish, if you are angry at a coworker or something, um, you should look at yourself and maybe go apologize and figure out why you're angry. Because if you're angry at them, it may be that you're angry at yourself or something. So Badger in the contrary position can issue in a time of reflection. Okay. Um, a time of reflection on what you feel helpless about. And, in this new time of stuff going on, you know, I'm retired. So I don't feel helpless. All keep my fingers crossed, that I trust the government and that my check will stay the same at least, right? So, but if I was a younger man, I'd be looking at this as an opportunity to go back to school, to learn another trade, to get in with a business on ground floor right now. Because man, this is with um, machining and making things coming back into the U.S. Find a job and do fixing stuff, man. You'll always have a job. But anyway, so I did go looking for a job myself if I could. In the reverse, Badger teaches you the pitfalls of shyness and insecurity, as well as of misused or vicious aggression. In other words, you snapped at somebody. You might have had a reason, but there actually, when you learn later on in life that to be just snapping at people, because you can and you then, it's better off that you don't do it and that you treat those moments with a different kind of kindness. It feels better. In another context, contrary Badger could be calling you to some herbs and roots to help calm you down in a situation. So Swan is giving you the permission to enter into the dream time. And so, wonder what's in the dream time for us, you know? I did some other cards, and it's like the cards seem to think that there's, you know, a something coming in the future. So, Buffalo is number 20, no, is number 19, and that's the next one in. So, Badger in the contrary position can issue in a time of reflection. So we got to think about this, you know, and not be so aggressive. We have to be aggressive in being, you know, in being. There are some people that they can look at themselves and their behavior, but they ain't being honest with themselves. So in that kind of situation, in that kind of situation, the dog will bark. Uh, okay, Duggar, calm down. All right, just a minute. It's that time for him to be out. But so anyway, just be careful with Badger. But so the last card up is Buffalo, and I'm going as fast as my puny little brain will go. It's number 19. I'm almost done. I'm almost done here. Buffalo should wrap it up, and it's right side up. Yeah, buddy. So Buffalo is, guess what? Prayer and abundance. Amen, brothers and sisters. In the Lakota tradition, it was the white buffalo calf woman who brought the sacred pipe to the people and taught them how to pray. The bowl of the pipe was the receptacle that held tobacco, um, which is a nerve that holds male and female medicine. The stem of the pipe represents the male entering the female and seeding life in the coming together of male and female. The connection to the divine energy of the Great Spirit is made with the sacred pipe. So, as the pipe was loaded with tobacco, every family in nature was asked to enter into the pipe and share its medicine as a prayer and praise to the heavens. So, see, so Buffalo is telling you that to remember this medicine, okay? And, you know, Badger's like be aggressive in something, but the something is prayer and abundance. How about that? All animals are sacred, but in many traditions, white buffalo is the most sacred. The appearance of white buffalo is a sign that prayers are being answered, or I'm sorry, are being heard, that the sacred pipe is being honored, and that the promises of prophecy are being fulfilled. White buffalo signals a time of abundance and plenty. Well, from what I understand, there are several white buffaloes out there. So, and you know, I do see where this change in business coming back into America, and the jobs in the automotive industry, and in building. Good God, you know, as a young man, I put up steel buildings, and they're going to be building stuff. Good God, I could get a job probably, you know, with no problem, except, you know, I got a bad back. But so there you have it. The ending of the cards is prayer and abundance. Wow, good for us, you know. Going backwards, you know, Badger's telling us to be aggressive with it, but not to the point of being ugly. And, you know, Swan is saying, you know, to remember that, to honor what great spirit has laid out for us. And that upside down swan says that maybe we're fighting a flow, and to accept the gentleness, and to accept the grace from the spirit. And um, with Weasel, we have to be stealthy in this new time, and we have to be patient like Ant, and we have to be loyal like Dog. So them are the cards, and it sounds cool. So there you go, my friends.
Yep.
I'm sorry I couldn't find the cards earlier. I know we're running late, and I didn't mean to do that to us, but that's a that's a good message right there. You know, um, everybody should be able to look at these cards and find something in them for them. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's right.
And a lot of, I'm sitting here and my brain's going, and in a lot of situations, you know, loyalty and the patience, and um, the stealth part is, if you go for a job, you have to be cautious, find out what the owner's like, what the business is like. You got to scout them out, not being, try to undermine the business, but you got to scout them out. And so there's, there's Weasel right there. And then Swan is like, if you find something and you follow the path of the creator, which might be telling you to take a job or something, then accept it with grace. And then, you've got a badger that says, then, move into it with aggression, but with a quiet aggression. And remember, that buffalo represents it all. So there you go. Cards for tonight.
Yep.
Blessings to you all, and thank you. And thanks for coming.
There you go. Mary Lynn says, excellent reading, Hawkeye. Bob is tired, I think. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Bob's tired.
I got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, but I got to go get operated on tomorrow. So
that's right. So we're gonna sign off here. Remember, everybody, go out and do something really good. Say some prayers for David tonight so he can have a successful surgery in the morning.
yeah, and I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, and the wisdom from the universe. And yeah, and say that tiny little prayer for me.
Yeah. And with that, everybody, be the frequency you want to receive. Love you all. We'll see you back here on Saturday. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.